The medical station floated like a silver moon in the darkness of space. Dr. Ji-Woo Kim pressed his face against the cold window of his small room. Far below, the planet Kepler 442b turned slowly, its blue and green surface looking peaceful from this distance. But Ji-Woo knew better. Down there, millions were dying from a disease no one could cure. Ji-Woo walked down the long hallway of the station. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. The walls were white and clean, filled with the soft hum of machines keeping everyone alive in the cold emptiness of space. This place was called New Geneva, and it was supposed to be the greatest medical research center in the galaxy. 12 different alien species worked here together. At least that was the plan. He stopped outside the main laboratory. Through the glass doors, he could see them all working. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin humans, but with silver skin that sparkled under the lights. The Drachmori had thick, scaly skin and moved like giant lizards. The Valonians were the strangest, looking like walking trees with branches for arms. And there were others, each more different than the last. All of them were much more advanced than humans. Their technology could do things that seemed like magic. They could heal wounds in seconds, grow new organs in minutes, and even move a person's mind from one body to another. But none of that mattered now. None of it could stop the Nexus flame. Ji-Woo entered the lab and walked to his workstation. It was smaller than the others, with older equipment. The other species had given humans the worst spot, as usual. They thought humans were too primitive to help with real science. "You are late again, human," said a cold voice behind him. Ji-Woo turned around. Nari Park stood there, but barely. She was leaning heavily on a metal cane, her face twisted with pain. 3 months ago, she had walked with perfect grace. Her people, the Valtharians, were known for being beautiful and flawless. They never got sick. Their bodies were perfect machines that worked without problems for hundreds of years. Now Nari could hardly stand. Her crystalline skin, which used to glow with soft light, looked dull and gray. Her legs shook with each step. The disease was eating her alive from the inside. "I'm sorry," Ji-Woo said. "I was checking on the patients in Ward 7. Nari's eyes flashed with anger. "Waste of time. Those patients cannot be saved. We should focus on finding a cure, not holding their hands while they die." This was how she always talked to him. Nari saw humans as soft and emotional. Her people believed feelings were weaknesses that got in the way of logic. But Ji-Woo had noticed something. When Nari thought no one was watching, he had seen her eyes fill with tears. She was scared, just like everyone else. The disease had started 6 months ago on a mining world at the edge of the galaxy. At first, people just felt tired. Then came the pain, burning, terrible pain in their joints and muscles. Their immune systems went crazy, attacking their own bodies. Soon they couldn't walk, couldn't think clearly, couldn't do anything but suffer. The disease spread fast. It jumped from world to world, species to species. Nothing seemed to stop it. The strange thing was it affected each species differently, but it always ended the same way. Total breakdown of the nervous system. "Have you made any progress with the quantum cellular repair?" Nari asked, slowly walking to her workstation. Ji-Woo watched her struggle. Each step looked like it caused terrible pain, but she refused to ask for help. "The repair system isn't working. It seems to make the inflammation worse." "Impossible," Nari said. But her voice was less sure than usual. "Our technology has never failed before." Ji-Woo looked around the lab. Every alien species was using their most advanced tools. The Zephyrians were trying to rebuild damaged cells atom by atom. The Drachmori were using biomolecular restructuring. The Valonians were attempting something called consciousness transfer protocols, trying to move minds to healthy bodies. Nothing worked. In fact, many of the treatments seemed to make patients worse. The lab doors opened with a soft hiss. Veltar, the Zephyrian council leader, walked in. He was 7 feet tall with silver skin that reflected the lights like a mirror. Behind him came representatives from the other species, all looking serious and worried. "Report," Veltar said in his booming voice. Dr. Hickstal, the Drachmori head researcher, spoke first. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "The biomolecular restructuring has failed. Patients show increased neural breakdown after treatment. The quantum repair protocols also show negative results," added Silvira from the Valonians. Her voice was like wind through leaves. "The disease appears to adapt to our interventions." One by one, each species reported failure. Their most advanced technologies, developed over thousands of years, were useless against this disease. Finally, Veltar looked at Ji-Woo. And what about human methods? Jiwoo felt all eyes in the room turn to him. Most of the looks were not friendly. I've been studying the inflammation patterns. They remind me of diseases we've seen on Earth. Autoimmune disorders where the body attacks itself. Veltar's silver face showed no emotion. You compare this galactic plague to primitive human ailments? The patterns are very similar. On Earth, we learned to treat these conditions by calming the immune system, not making it stronger. A sound like metal grinding came from the Drakmori section. It took Jiwoo a moment to realize it was laughter. Humans and their weak medicine, Dr. Hickstal said. You still use plants and primitive chemicals. This disease requires advanced science. Nari spoke up from her chair. She had given up trying to stand during meetings. The human may have a point. Our treatments are making patients worse, not better. Veltar's silver eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting that primitive human medicine is superior to our advanced technology? The room fell silent. Jiwoo could feel the tension. These species had worked together for years, but they had never really respected humans. To them, humanity was still crawling out of caves while they traveled between stars. I'm saying maybe we should try a different approach, Nari said quietly. Impossible, Veltar declared. We will not reduce ourselves to the level of primitive healing. Increase the power of all treatments. Use stronger quantum fields. Rebuild their immune systems completely if necessary. Jiwoo wanted to speak, but he knew it was useless. These beings were so convinced of their superiority that they couldn't see the truth in front of them. Their perfect technology was killing their patients. As the meeting ended and the aliens filed out, Nari stayed behind. She sat in her chair, breathing heavily from pain. They won't listen, Jiwoo said. No, Nari agreed. They won't. But I will die if something doesn't change soon. Jiwoo looked at her carefully. Despite her cold words and superior attitude, he could see the fear in her crystalline eyes. She was desperate. What if I could help you? He asked. Nari looked up at him with surprise. With human medicine? It's worth trying. What do you have to lose? Nari was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, the planet below continued its slow rotation. Somewhere down there, millions were dying while the greatest medical minds in the galaxy argued about pride and superiority. What would you need? She finally asked. Jiwoo spent the next 3 days in the human medical archives. The computer room was small and cramped compared to the alien facilities, but it contained thousands of years of human medical knowledge. While the other species had perfect bodies that rarely got sick, humans had been fighting disease since they first walked upright. He pulled up files about arthritis, lupus, and multiple sclerosis. These were old enemies that human doctors had been battling for centuries. The patterns were clear. In each case, the body's immune system turned against itself, causing inflammation and pain. Nari had agreed to meet him in secret. The human quarters were the only place on the station where they wouldn't be watched constantly. She arrived late at night, moving slowly down the corridor with her cane. Jiwoo could hear her coming from far away because each step caused her to gasp with pain. This is dangerous, she said as he led her into his room. If Veltar finds out I'm working with you, he'll remove me from the project. Then we better make sure he doesn't find out, Jiwoo replied. His room was basic compared to alien quarters. No floating furniture or holographic displays, just a simple bed, desk, and chair. But it was quiet and private. Nari sat down heavily in the chair. Show me what you found. Jiwoo activated his tablet and showed her the medical files. Look at these inflammation patterns from human autoimmune diseases. Now compare them to what we're seeing with Nexus Flame. Nari leaned forward, studying the data. Her crystalline fingers traced the patterns on the screen. They are very similar. But these human diseases are primitive compared to Nexus Flame. Are they? Jiwoo asked. Or maybe Nexus Flame is just an autoimmune disease that affects multiple species? Think about it. Your people have perfect immune systems. They never encounter diseases, so they never learn to control themselves. When they finally meet something that confuses them, they go crazy. Nari was quiet for a long time. You think our advanced immune systems are the problem? I think they're too good at their job. Human immune systems are messy and imperfect. They make mistakes all the time. But because of that, we learned how to calm them down when they attack the wrong things. Jiwoo pulled up another file. Here's how humans treat autoimmune diseases. We don't try to make the immune system stronger. We teach it to relax. That seems backwards, Nari said, but she was listening carefully. Maybe. But it works. We use anti-inflammatory drugs, controlled exposure to helpful bacteria, stress reduction techniques. Sometimes the simple approach is better than the complex one. Nari shifted in her chair, wincing from pain. What would you do if I were human? Jiwoo had been thinking about this for days. First, I'd start you on basic anti-inflammatory treatment. Not the powerful quantum cellular repair the others are using, but simple drugs that tell your immune system to slow down. Then I'd look at your environment and stress levels. My environment? I've noticed something. Your symptoms get worse during council meetings and better when you're here in the human quarters. That might not be a coincidence. Nari looked around his simple room. You think this place is somehow better for me than our advanced facilities? Maybe. Your body might be reacting to something in the alien technology. Some kind of stress response that makes the inflammation worse. This was a dangerous idea. If Jiwoo was right, it meant that the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy was actually making patients sicker. No alien council would accept that. Would you be willing to try? Jiwoo asked. Nari looked at him for a long time. In the dim light of his room, her crystalline skin looked almost human. If I agree to this and Veltar finds out, my career is over. My people will see me as a traitor. If you don't try, you might not live long enough to have a career. This was true, and they both knew it. The disease was getting worse every day. Nari could barely walk now, and soon she might not be able to move at all. What would you need? She asked. Access to your medical files and permission to run some basic tests. I'll also need help from Taemin. Taemin Choi was Jiwoo's research assistant, a young man who had graduated from medical school just before coming to the station. The alien researchers usually ignored him completely, which made him perfect for secret work. The next morning, Jiwoo met Taemin in the small human medical bay. It was basic compared to alien facilities, but it had everything they needed for simple treatments. Are you sure about this? Taemin asked. If the council finds out we're treating an alien without permission, they could send us back to Earth. Nari is dying, Jiwoo said. The alien treatments aren't working. Someone has to try something different. They spent the day modifying the medical bay to accommodate Valtharian physiology. Nari's people had different blood chemistry and nerve structures than humans, but the basic principles were the same. Pain was pain. Inflammation was inflammation. That evening, Nari came to them again. She moved even slower than before, and Jiwoo could see that her crystalline skin was starting to crack in places. The disease was literally breaking her apart. I've brought my medical files, she said, handing him a small crystal device. Everything is there. Genetic structure, immune system mapping, treatment history. Jiwoo plugged the device into his computer. The data was incredible. Valtharian medical technology could track every cell in the body, every chemical reaction, every nerve impulse. But all that data hadn't helped them find a cure. Look at this, he said to Taemin. Her immune system is attacking nerve pathways at the cellular level. But see these patterns? They're exactly like human multiple sclerosis cases from the 20th century. Before we had modern treatments, Taemin added. Back then, patients often couldn't walk either. Jiwoo began his examination of Nari. Her vital signs were unstable, her nerve responses slow and painful. But underneath all the alien physiology, he could see the same patterns human doctors had been fighting for centuries. I want to start with a simple anti-inflammatory treatment, he explained. Not the quantum cellular repair the others are using, but basic chemical suppression of your immune response. That sounds dangerous, Nari said. Less dangerous than what you're doing now, Taemin replied. Those quantum treatments are like using a hammer when you need a gentle touch. They started with the smallest possible dose. Jiwoo had modified human medications to work with Valtharian chemistry, but he was being very careful. One mistake could kill her. The first injection was tense. All three of them watched Nari's vital signs on the monitor, waiting for any sign of trouble. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then Nari gasped, not with pain this time, but with surprise. The burning in my legs, she said. It's less. It was a small change, barely noticeable on the medical readings. But for Nari, it was the first relief she had felt in months. We'll continue with small doses, Jiwoo said, and I want you to spend more time here in the human quarters, away from the alien medical equipment. You really think their technology is making me worse? I think your immune system is responding to stress, and all that advanced equipment might be stressing your body in ways we don't understand. Over the next few days, they developed a routine. Nari would come to the human medical bay each evening for treatment. They used simple anti-inflammatory drugs, gentle physical therapy, and stress reduction techniques. Nothing fancy, nothing advanced. And slowly, incredibly, she began to improve. The change was small at first. Nari could stand for a few more minutes without pain. Her crystalline skin began to show hints of its old glow. She walked a little straighter, but they had to be careful. If anyone discovered what they were doing, the consequences would be severe. The Alien Council had forbidden humans from treating other species without supervision. This has to stay secret, Jiwoo warned. If Veltar finds out, he'll shut us down immediately. I understand, Nari said. But Jiwoo, what if you're right? What if human medicine really can cure this disease? Billions are dying across the galaxy. Then we'll have to prove it works first, Jiwoo replied, one patient at a time. But keeping secrets on a space station was harder than they thought. Other aliens had begun to notice Nari's improvement. Questions were being asked. And Veltar was starting to pay attention to the human medical bay. 2 weeks into the secret treatment, Nari walked into the main laboratory without her cane. The room fell silent. Every alien researcher stopped what they were doing and stared at her. Dr. Hickstel, the Drakmori researcher, was the first to speak. His rocky voice cracked with disbelief. How is this possible? Your condition was terminal. Nari moved carefully to her workstation. She still felt pain, but it was manageable now. For the first time in months, she could think clearly without the constant burning in her nerves. I have been following the new quantum protocols more carefully. She lied smoothly. But Veltar was not convinced. The tall Zephyrian council leader studied her with his sharp silver eyes. Your improvement is remarkable. Too remarkable. What additional treatments have you received? Nothing outside the approved methods, Nari replied. That night, she met Jiwoo in the human quarters as usual, but this time she brought someone else with her. This is Hyeth, she said, introducing a Drakmori who looked much younger than Dr. Hickstal. His scales were a bright green instead of the older researcher's dull brown. Hyeth spoke in the grinding voice of his people, but it was softer than the older Drakmori. My homeworld is dying. 3 billion of my people cannot walk. They lie in pain, waiting for death. Jiwoo felt the weight of those words. 3 billion lives. It was more than the entire population of Earth. The Council refuses to consider new approaches, Hyeth continued. They would rather watch worlds die than admit their methods don't work. Taemin looked up from his medical equipment. Can you get us data from your homeworld? Medical files from the patients there? Yes, but it is dangerous. If the Council discovers what I am doing, we understand, Jiwoo said. We're all taking risks here. Over the next few days, Hyeth secretly sent them medical data from his dying homeworld. The files were heartbreaking. Millions of Drakmori, once proud and strong, now lay helpless as their immune systems destroyed their own bodies. But the data also confirmed Jiwoo's theory. The patterns were identical to what they had seen with Nari and the other Nexus Flame patients. Every species was suffering from the same basic problem, immune systems that had become too aggressive. Look at this, Taemin said, pointing to his screen. The Drakmori immune system is even more advanced than the Valtharians. It can identify and eliminate threats at the molecular level. Which means when it goes wrong, it goes very wrong, Jiwoo added. They began developing treatments for Drakmori physiology. It was more complex than treating Nari, because the Drakmori had completely different body chemistry. But the basic approach was the same. Calm the immune system instead of trying to enhance it. Meanwhile, word of Nari's recovery was spreading through the station. Other alien researchers were starting to ask questions. Some were curious, others were suspicious. Dr. Sun-Hee Lee arrived on the station during this tense time. She was a human immunologist from Earth, specializing in autoimmune disorders. Jiwoo had requested her help weeks ago, but it had taken time for her to travel from Earth to the station. I brought the historical medical archives you requested, she said, handing him several data storage devices. Every case study of autoimmune disease treatment from the past 500 years. Sun-Hee was a small woman with quick, intelligent eyes. She had spent her career studying the same diseases that were now killing billions across the galaxy. This Nexus Flame, she said after reviewing the data. It's not new. Humans have been dealing with similar conditions for thousands of years. That's what I thought, Jiwoo replied. But the alien species have never encountered anything like this. Their immune systems are too perfect. Perfect, Sun-Hee laughed. There's no such thing as a perfect immune system. If there was, humans would have developed it long ago. We've been fighting diseases since we came down from the trees. She began working with them immediately. With her expertise, they were able to refine their treatments even further. Nari's condition continued to improve. She could now walk normally and work full days without pain, but their success was becoming impossible to hide. Veltar called a council meeting. All the senior researchers gathered in the main conference room. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing the diseases spread across the galaxy. Red dots marked infected worlds. There were hundreds of them. The situation continues to worsen, Veltar announced. Despite our best efforts, we are losing ground. 17 worlds have been completely evacuated. The death toll now exceeds 50 billion. The room was silent. Even for beings who thought in terms of galactic populations, 50 billion deaths was staggering. However, Veltar continued, there has been one interesting development. Nari Park has shown remarkable improvement. Her recovery might give us clues for treating other patients. All eyes turned to Nari. She sat straight in her chair, looking healthier than she had in months. But Jiwoo could see the tension in her face. Tell us about your treatment protocol, Dr. Hickstal demanded. Nari looked around the room. Every alien species was represented here. These were the most advanced medical minds in the galaxy, and they all expected her to have found some brilliant new solution. I have been following the standard quantum cellular repair protocols, she said carefully. Impossible, declared Dr. Silvera from the Valonians. We have used the same protocols on thousands of patients. None have shown your level of improvement. Veltar stepped forward. His silver face reflected the light from the holographic displays. Nari, I am ordering you to share your complete medical records with this council. We must understand what has helped you. This was the moment they had all been dreading. If Nari refused, she would be forced to explain why. If she agreed, the records would show the human treatments. Nari began, then stopped. The room waited in silence. Outside the windows, stars moved slowly past as the station continued its orbit. Finally, Nari made her choice. I have been receiving additional treatment from the human medical team, she said. The reaction was immediate. Several alien researchers began talking at once. Dr. Hickstal's rocky voice boomed over the others. You allowed humans to experiment on you? They didn't experiment, Nari said firmly. They treated me using established human medical techniques. Veltar's silver eyes blazed with anger. You violated council protocols by receiving unauthorized treatment from primitive humans? Those primitive humans saved my life, Nari shot back. The room erupted in arguments. Some aliens were outraged that Nari had gone behind the council's back. Others were curious about what the humans had done. A few seemed to be considering whether human methods might actually work. Veltar raised his hand for silence. When the room was quiet, he spoke in a voice like ice. Bring the humans here. Now. 20 minutes later, Jiwoo, Taemin, and Sunhee stood before the alien council. Jiwoo had been in this room many times, but never as the center of attention. Usually, the aliens barely acknowledged human presence. Explain what you did, Veltar commanded. Jiwoo took a deep breath. This was his chance to save billions of lives, but he had to be careful. The council's pride was wounded, and wounded pride was dangerous. We treated Nari's condition as an autoimmune disorder, he said. Instead of trying to enhance her immune system, we helped it calm down. Ridiculous, Dr. Hickstal rumbled. Our immune systems are far superior to yours. They do not need to be calmed down. With respect, Sunhee interrupted. Superior doesn't always mean better. Human immune systems evolved to handle constant threats. We learned to balance aggression with restraint. Are you suggesting that human medicine is more advanced than ours? Veltar asked dangerously. Not more advanced, Jiwoo said carefully. Different. Sometimes a different approach is what you need. The debate continued for hours. The alien researchers were split between those who wanted to try human methods and those who saw it as an insult to their superiority. Throughout it all, Nari sat quietly, living proof that human medicine could work. Finally, Veltar made his decision. The humans will be allowed to treat one volunteer from each species. If their methods show results, we will consider broader application. If they fail, the human medical team will be removed from this station permanently. It was a test and everyone knew it. Jiwoo looked around the room at the alien faces staring back at him. Some looked hopeful, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. We'll need access to your medical databases and permission to modify our treatment protocols for each species, Jiwoo said. Granted, Veltar replied. You have 1 month to show results. As the meeting ended and the aliens filed out, Nari approached the human team. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Don't thank us yet, Sun-hee replied. The real work is just beginning. Outside the conference room windows, the infected planet below continued its slow rotation. Time was running out, and the weight of billions of lives now rested on human medicine that the galaxy had dismissed as primitive. The human medical team worked day and night for 3 weeks. They treated volunteer patients from each alien species, adapting their anti-inflammatory approaches to work with completely different biologies. The results were better than anyone expected. Krevel, the Zephyrian volunteer, went from being bedridden to walking in just 10 days. Mordash, a Drakmori like Hyeth, regained feeling in his legs after 2 weeks. Even Dr. Velnara, an elderly Valonian whose branches had been withering from the disease, began to grow new shoots. But success brought new problems. Word of the human treatments spread beyond the station. Desperate families on infected worlds began sending messages begging for help. Alien governments that had once ignored humanity suddenly wanted access to human doctors. We're getting thousands of requests, Taemin reported to Jiwoo. Ships are arriving from all over the galaxy bringing patients. The station wasn't equipped to handle so many people. But more importantly, the Alien Council was getting nervous about human success. They're scared, Nari told Jiwoo during one of their evening meetings. For centuries, they've believed their medicine was the best in the galaxy. Now humans are proving them wrong. It's not about being better, Jiwoo replied. It's about using the right approach for the problem. Try telling that to Veltar. The Zephyrian Council leader had become increasingly hostile as the human treatment succeeded. During daily briefings, he questioned every human decision and demanded detailed explanations for every procedure. These primitive methods cannot be trusted, he declared during one meeting. We must develop our own improved versions of these treatments. But when the alien researchers tried to enhance human methods with their advanced technology, the treatments stopped working. The quantum-enhanced anti-inflammatory drugs caused worse reactions. The biomolecular modifications of human stress reduction techniques had no effect. Dr. Sun-hee tried to explain why during a council session. The effectiveness comes from the simplicity, she said. When you add quantum enhancements, you're creating new variables that the immune system sees as threats. Impossible, Dr. Hickstal rumbled. Our enhancements improve everything. Not this time, Sun-hee replied firmly. The tension came to a head when Veltar made a shocking announcement. He called an emergency council meeting and stood before the assembled researchers with news that changed everything. I have received reports that humans are spreading biological contamination, he said. There are claims that human medical techniques are designed to weaken alien immune systems, making our species dependent on human intervention. The room fell silent. Jiwoo felt his blood turn cold. That's not true, he said. Isn't it? Veltar's silver eyes gleamed. How convenient that humans, the weakest species in our alliance, suddenly become essential. How fortunate that your primitive medicine is the only thing that works. Several alien researchers nodded agreement. The fear and wounded pride that had been building for weeks was turning into paranoia. You're suggesting we're deliberately spreading disease? Sun-hee asked, her voice tight with anger. I'm suggesting that humans have found a way to make themselves indispensable, Veltar replied, by creating problems only they can solve. Nari stood up slowly. Her movement was smooth and pain-free now, but her face was pale. This is madness. The humans saved my life, did they? Veltar turned to her. Or did they cause your condition and then provide a cure that makes you dependent on them? I was dying before they helped me, Nari protested. So you claim. But you worked closely with humans from the beginning of this project. Perhaps the contamination started then. The accusations were getting wilder, but Jiwoo could see that some of the alien researchers were listening. Fear made people believe impossible things. Dr. Hyeth, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. My homeworld was infected months before any humans arrived. Your accusations make no sense. Unless humans seeded the disease long before revealing themselves as the cure. Veltar replied smoothly. This is insane, Taemin whispered to Jiwoo. But insane or not, it was working. Veltar was turning the aliens against the humans by playing on their deepest fear, that they weren't as superior as they had always believed. "I am issuing new protocols," Veltar announced. "All human medical activities are suspended immediately. Human staff will be confined to quarters pending investigation." "You can't do this," Jiwoo said. "Patients are depending on our treatments." "Patients are depending on alien medicine," Veltar corrected. "As they always have. As they always will." Security officers, tall, imposing Zephyrians, moved to escort the human team from the room. But before they could reach them, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as an automated voice announced, "Medical emergency in Ward 7. All medical personnel report immediately." The ward housed the most critical patients, aliens from across the galaxy who had come to the station as a last hope. Many had been improving under human treatment, but that treatment had just been stopped. "The patients," Sun He said, "without continued treatment their immune systems will crash." Veltar hesitated. Even with his paranoia, he couldn't ignore a medical emergency. "Very well," he said. "Humans may assist in this emergency only. Under strict supervision." They rushed to Ward 7 to find chaos. Patients who had been walking just hours ago were collapsing. The Drekmori volunteer, Mordash, was convulsing as his nervous system shut down. The elderly Valonian, Dr. Velnara, was losing the new growth that had given everyone hope. "Their bodies are going into withdrawal," Sun He explained quickly. "The anti-inflammatory treatment needs to be reduced gradually, not stopped suddenly." But the alien medical staff was in panic. They tried to restart the quantum cellular repair protocols that had failed before. They used biomolecular restructuring. Nothing worked. "In fact, the patients got worse. Let us help them," Jiwoo pleaded with Veltar. "No, this proves my point. You made them dependent on your treatments." "This is biological warfare. This is medicine," Nari said angrily. "When you stop any treatment suddenly, there can be consequences." But Veltar wasn't listening. He was watching his perfect alien medicine fail again, while human treatments could save lives. The site was destroying everything he believed about alien superiority. "Remove the humans," he ordered security. As the guards moved forward, something unexpected happened. The alien patients themselves began to protest. "Wait," called out Krivel, the Zephyrian volunteer. He was barely able to stand, but he pushed himself upright. "The humans healed me. I could walk for the first time in months." "They're killing you now," Veltar replied. "No," Krivel said firmly. "You are." By stopping their treatment. Other patients joined in. Aliens from different species, many barely able to speak, defended the human medical team. They had felt hope for the first time in months, and now it was being taken away by politics and pride. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. The security guards continued forward. That's when Min Ho Yoon appeared. He was a human medical technician who had been working quietly in the background throughout the crisis. While the senior staff argued with the council, Min Ho had been developing something different, portable treatment kits that could be smuggled to infected worlds. "You want to know what biological warfare looks like?" he said, stepping between the guards and the medical team. Behind him, a group of human technicians wheeled in carts full of medical supplies. "We've been preparing for this," Min Ho continued. "While you argued about superiority in politics, we built a network. Human doctors are already on 50 infected worlds treating patients your governments abandoned." Veltar's silver face turned darker. "You admit to spreading your contamination?" "We admit to practicing medicine," Min Ho replied. "Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." The situation was escalating beyond anything Jiwoo had imagined. What had started as a simple attempt to help Nari had become a galactic crisis. Alien governments were now claiming that humans were conducting biological warfare, while human medical teams were being hailed as saviors on worlds the aliens had written off. "You have forced our hand," Veltar said coldly. "As of now, all humans are banned from alien space. Any human caught treating alien patients will be arrested as a biological terrorist. Then billions will die," Sun He said quietly. "Better death with dignity than dependence on primitive medicine," Veltar replied. The words hung in the air like poison. Jiwoo realized that they had won the medical battle but lost the political war. Pride and fear were stronger than logic or compassion. As security guards prepared to escort them away, Nari made a choice that surprised everyone. She stepped forward and stood with the humans. If helping patients makes someone a terrorist, she said, then I'm a terrorist too. Her words echoed through the ward, and Jiwoo knew that whatever happened next would determine the fate of billions across the galaxy. Nari's declaration changed everything. Within hours, alien patients throughout the station began supporting the human medical team. Hyeth openly defied his own government by sharing intelligence about infected worlds that needed help. Even some of the alien researchers began questioning Veltar's accusations. But the crisis deepened when news arrived that shook everyone to their core. Veltar has been infected, Dr. Silvera announced during an emergency meeting. The Nexus flame reached the station's command deck this morning. The irony was bitter. The being who had banned human treatments was now suffering from the very disease those treatments could cure. Jiwoo felt no satisfaction at the news. How bad is it?
He can barely stand, Silvera replied.
Her tree-like branches drooped with worry. The infection is spreading rapidly through his nervous system. We should help him, Sun He said immediately. Several alien researchers protested. He banned you from treating anyone. Why would you help him now? Because that's what doctors do, Jiwoo replied simply. But when they approached Veltar's private quarters, the proud Zephyrian leader refused to see them. Through the intercom, his voice was weak but still defiant. I will not accept primitive human medicine, he gasped between waves of pain. Then you'll die, Sun He said bluntly. Your own treatments aren't working. Better to die. With dignity, than live as a human pet. Nari stepped forward to the intercom. Veltar, I know you think I've betrayed our alliance. But look at me. I'm healthy for the first time in months. I can work, I can think clearly, I can live without constant pain. You've been contaminated, Veltar replied. I've been healed, Nari said firmly. And you can be too. The argument continued for an hour. Veltar's condition worsened while his pride kept him from accepting help. Finally, exhaustion forced him to sleep. That's when Dr. Hextall approached the human team with a desperate proposal. Treat him while he's unconscious, the old Drakmori said. Save his life whether he agrees or not. We can't do that, Jiwoo replied. Medical treatment requires consent. Not if the patient is incapacitated and dying, Taemin pointed out. Emergency protocols allow us to act to save lives. It was a difficult decision. Treating Veltar without permission would prove his accusations about human manipulation, but letting him die would make him a martyr and turn the entire galaxy against humanity. Sun He made the choice for all of them. We're doctors first, politicians second. He's our patient whether he likes it or not. They worked through the night. Veltar's condition was worse than any patient they had treated before. The disease had nearly destroyed his nervous system. But slowly, carefully, they began the same treatment that had saved Nari, anti-inflammatory drugs to calm his immune system. Gentle therapy to reduce stress responses. Simple, basic medicine that cost almost nothing and required no advanced technology. By morning, Veltar was breathing easier. His silver skin, which had been growing dull and cracked, began to show its old luster. When he woke up, the burning pain that had consumed him for days was gone. The change in his attitude was immediate and complete. How do you feel? Jiwoo asked. Veltar sat up slowly, testing his body. For the first time in weeks, movement didn't cause agony. I feel normal. How is this possible? Simple medicine, Sun He said. No quantum enhancement, no biomolecular restructuring. Just basic treatment that humans have been using for centuries. Veltar was quiet for a long time. Jiwoo could see him struggling with everything he had believed about alien superiority. I owe you an apology, he finally said, and much more than that. Within hours of Veltar's recovery, everything changed on the station. The ban on human treatments was lifted. Security restrictions were removed. The Alien Council formally requested human assistance in treating the galactic pandemic. But Jiwoo knew the real work was just beginning. We need to train alien doctors in human techniques, he explained to the assembled council, teaching them to recognize autoimmune responses and how to treat them simply. You would share your medical knowledge freely? Dr. Hextall asked. Even after how we treated you? Medicine belongs to everyone, Sun He replied. Healing isn't about superiority. It's about helping people live without pain. Over the following months, the Terran Medical Corps was established with Jiwoo as its first director and Nari as his co-director. Human doctors traveled to infected worlds across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as teachers. They showed alien physicians that sometimes the most advanced solution was also the most humble one. The transformation was remarkable. Worlds that had been written off as lost began to recover. Patients who couldn't walk for months were running within weeks. Entire civilizations that had faced extinction found hope in simple human medicine. Yunji Seo, a human diplomat who had watched the crisis unfold, later wrote about what she had witnessed. We didn't save the galaxy with superior technology or military might. We saved it by teaching advanced species something they had forgotten, that healing sometimes requires stepping backward to move forward. The most surprising change came from the alien species themselves. As they learned human medical techniques, they began to understand that their perfect immune systems were actually a weakness. They had evolved in sterile environments protected by technology. When faced with real biological challenges, they couldn't adapt. Humans, on the other hand, had evolved fighting diseases every step of the way. Their immune systems were messy and imperfect, but they were also flexible and resilient. Your weakness became your strength, Veltar observed during one of their regular meetings. He had become one of the strongest supporters of human medicine, using his influence to spread treatments throughout Zephyrian space. Maybe it was never weakness, Nari suggested. Maybe it was just a different kind of strength that nobody recognized. 2 years later, statues of Jiwoo and Nari were erected in medical centers across the galaxy. The inscriptions, written in hundreds of alien languages, all carried the same message: in remembrance of the moment when healing overcame pride. Jiwoo often stood before the statue in the New Geneva station, remembering how it all began with one alien woman who couldn't walk and one human doctor who refused to give up. The simple title of their story had become a galaxy-wide legend. She couldn't walk from severe inflammation. He helped her heal. But the real legacy wasn't in statues or legends. It was in the millions of patients who walked freely because someone had chosen compassion over politics, healing over pride. The Terran Medical Corps grew to include doctors from every species, all working together with a simple motto borrowed from ancient human medicine. First, do no harm. They learned that the most powerful treatments weren't always the most complex ones, and that sometimes the greatest victory was admitting you didn't have all the answers. Nari continued to work alongside human doctors, becoming a bridge between species and a symbol of cooperation. Her recovery had started as a medical miracle, but it became something much more important: proof that different species could learn from each other if they put aside their assumptions about superiority. Years later, when young medical students asked Jiwoo about the secret of human medicine, he would always give the same answer: we learned to heal because we had to. We weren't strong enough to avoid disease, so we got good at fighting it. Sometimes being imperfect is exactly what makes you perfect for the job. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way, but once learned, it changed everything. Medicine became truly universal, practiced by all species working together. And somewhere in the vast network of hospitals and treatment centers that stretched across the stars, patients who couldn't walk were learning to run again, one step at a time. The story that began with inflammation and pain had ended with healing and hope. And in the quiet moments between one patient and the next, Jiwoo knew that this was what medicine was really about, not the technology or the prestige, but the simple act of helping someone feel better. That was worth more than all the advanced science in the galaxy.